Oh, I did think this was interesting. It was a design discussion about Street Fighter 6 and Street Fighter 5. So much like if you don't like Street Fighter 5, hate all the things about Street Fighter 5. If you don't like Street Fighter 6, hate all the things about Street Fighter 6, but nobody was really honest at all. I thought literally every interaction in watching people talk about this was like so dishonest and untrue. This is a tweet about it, which is, I feel like people often forget when thinking back on Street Fighter 5, crouching medium kick confirms. Unlike crouching medium kick drive rush, there's no tangible risk to you confirming compared to drive rushing. The reward on a drive rush is higher, but on block your risk is losing 3 bars and getting nothing. In Street Fighter 5, a lot of the buttons in the game were hit confirmable. So you hit a button, and when the button hits, if you see it hits, you can cancel it into a combo and get damage, right? And whatever. If you see that it's blocked, you don't do any cancel, and then nothing really happens. The frame advantage situation is whatever, like either you're plus if it's like a medium that you're staggering, or if it's crouching medium kick, you're minus, and then whatever, and like the situation doesn't change. In Street Fighter 6, if you want to like confirm a crouching medium kick, you can't just raw confirm it based on seeing the move hit and then canceling into a move like Karen's Tenko in Street Fighter 5, which is like the hallmark of like how Punk and a lot of other people played the game. And it was a huge part of the game. Like single hit confirms were like a core aspect of Street Fighter 5. And in Street Fighter 6, it's not that way. They removed single hit confirms from tons of the moves in the game, particularly the mediums. They left it basically only on heavies, like big attacks that have decent recovery. And I saw so many people discussing this on Twitter. They were like, lol, omega lol, are you stupid? There's no risk to doing crouching medium kick drive rush. You do it, and on hit, you get a combo, and on block, you get pressure, right? Everybody here is being dishonest. It costs half of your total resources. Like you have 6 drive gauge in the game. It costs 3 drive gauge to pull up. And obviously if it hits, you get the corner carry, you get the damage, you get all kinds of stuff. If it's blocked, then you do your mix up, and either you're right and you get to continue your offense, or you're wrong and then you try to bait the throw, they reversal jab, and then you end up going back to neutral, and now you're down half your drive gauge. Obviously, it is more risky to spend part of your resources drive rushing than it is to spend none of your resources and be able to hit confirm. The games are just different in this sense. And I'm not even saying that the way Street Fighter 5 did their pressure and buttons is bad either, but it's like a completely different game plan. If you watch Street Fighter 5, the way I describe it is like the game plays knock, 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 walk up, plus medium button, plus medium button, plus medium button. Oh, button now hits, like crouching medium kick, bet, hit confirm into whatever, stagger pressure, take the throw, we reset back to neutral. It was resourceless generally, right? Street Fighter 6 is like the opposite. They designed completely away from the ideas of 5. It's like no single hit confirms. If you want to do a move and then obtain reasonable damage off of it generally, you need to either commit with like a cancel or like a thing, like a super or whatever, or you need to commit your resources in drive gauge. So the game is far more like, if you want to make stuff happen, you are spending a gauge. You're interacting with the system. Street Fighter 5 is a lot more of like, you're interacting with your own reactions. The reason that they designed away from the Street Fighter 5 wave, they just wanted the game to be different. Like after X amount of years, they wanted to like make a game that was much more about a resource system that both opponents are interacting with and engaging with. And for better or worse, Street Fighter iterates on like every game, right? So like you can see the decisions in Street Fighter 4 that they enjoyed, that they brought to 5, and also that they designed away from. In 4, getting strong, loopable offense off of all your knockdowns and like throw knockdowns and stuff. You could throw someone on unblockable them in Street Fighter 4. They went to 5 after throw loops were removed, right? They're like, are bad. When you throw someone, nothing bad happens. You throw someone now and you're across the stage back to neutral. You never have to worry about it again. 6 is the opposite. It's like you throw someone, you drive rush, or you pull up on them, or you get a throw loop, or you go get offense off of your throw. Like it's different. They've designed away from it again. Most new iterations iterate away from what they did before. Injustice 1 was very different than MK9, right? And Injustice 1 was a rather defensive turtley game that didn't have proximity guards, so you could like walk away from lots of forward advancing things, and the game was about checking movement options and playing the game in a specific way, right, defensively. MKX was like for drug addicts. You just ran at each other and killed each other. It was like the complete opposite of Injustice 1. Injustice 2 comes out, you're sitting back there zoning and like playing defensive, big challenge, shooting lasers with Supergirl or Superman or Black Adam or whatever. You're like zoning again, right? It's a lot of it was defensive. And then same thing, they go back to MK. The game is a lot faster, more aggressive. It's about going and getting the other person, etc. They were building games back and forth. When a new Street Fighter game comes out, Street Fighter 7, I'm sure it'll be very different from Street Fighter 6 and how the resources in this game worked and like how the gameplay flow in this game works. But so many Street Fighter 5 players were like, it's more skilled and more honorable and better. In Street Fighter 5, I could do my pokes over and over, and then one hit confirm them, and then get offense, and then on block, nothing happens. Whereas in this game, it's like not skilled and scrubby that you can't hit confirm and you have to spend resources. I like my thing, so I'm gonna make your thing look bad and like describe it in a negative way. I can understand being a fan of either style of gameplay, but clearly the gameplay decisions are just the opposite. In this game, crouching medium kicks are a lot more unsafe on block, and they tend to not have high reward, and they're not hit confirmable. You hit the button, and generally you need to be canceling it into drive rush if you want to get a lot of stuff off of it. They want you to constantly engage with the resource of the game. Because let's imagine Street Fighter 6 with hit confirmable mediums. Nobody would ever spend drive gauge on block. I shouldn't say nobody, but far less often. Why spend half of your drive gauge when you could just do crouching medium kick? Oh, it didn't hit, I won't cancel. Crouching medium kick, oh, it didn't hit, I won't cancel it. Spending half your drive gauge on drive rush is a risk. Like, I mean, sure, a lot of times it puts you in a very favorable position. On Street Fighter 5, you didn't have to spend any resource and you were just chilling. It's a lot like Uni to me in that sense, where like they want you thinking about the global objective of the game. One thing that's really boring in a game is when your gauge does like one thing, or you only have 1 meter to manage, but you don't really manage it. Remember when Granblue came out and the super meter was only super? You like always spent your super because like, why wouldn't you spend your super? Because the super gauge only supers. And then they added the U moves that take a percentage of your super gauge now. So there's like something else to do with the meter besides, oh, this is a free super once around, just always use that super. I think Street Fighter 6 did an interesting job with the supers in the sense that it's another gauge to manage, the super gauge, but also spending supers has impact on your opponent's drive gauge. And deciding whether you want to spend a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3 is important. And also, your super gauge is the only way to defend yourself while in burnout. And part of the game's difficulty is managing all the normal fighting game aspects that's happening alongside managing the drive gauge and your super gauge and like making decisions around those two resources. And Street Fighter 5 was similar in that it had V gauge and the V system that it wanted you to engage with the V skills and V triggers, and deciding how you wanted to manage the gauge in that, whether you were interested in saving for V triggers, whether you were targeting your opponent by doing strings or things that they were forced to V reversal or highly incentivized the V reversal, so you can strip them of V gauge so that they couldn't pop their very powerful V trigger. But the way the pressure worked and the way you interacted with hit confirms and like how you ran offense and stuff was obviously a lot different. And same thing with the kind of decisions that they iterated on in regards to like focus attack and ultras, leading to like, maybe we should do a less extreme version of this and incentivize you to do something a little bit more tangible than focusing and focus attack and taking damage. So they kept the taking damage, but they made it a V skill and a V trigger system that you engage with. And then you had other options you can do with the system. Then they expanded that to be like a system-wide present thing. Street Fighter 6's drive gauge, which is like something you always tangle with. And the gameplay is tangibly affected by your drive gauge constantly. Every interaction is like, do I have a lot of drive gauge? Can I do this? Do I have the meter to manage this? Is there a meter low? It affects decision-making by both players in an interesting way, right? So they iterated on the gauge game after game, and they iterated on one hit confirms or no hit confirms or spending meter or doing like fireball, FADC pressure, or not doing that, or spending meter this way. They're always going to do that. Street Fighter 7, I'm sure, will iterate and change away from it. I played and enjoyed both games, so it's not like I'm going to tell you, oh, only Street Fighter 6's way of doing stuff is good. I can totally see why someone would enjoy Street Fighter 5's gameplay and then not enjoy Street Fighter 6, because they're very different. One thing about fighting games in general is that you see whatever the big games do. If Street Fighter starts doing one thing or one idea, then all the other games are like, maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should have a resource that lets you yeet yourself at your opponent and turn green. So you will see other games iterate and try similar-ish ideas for similar reasons. Like, more games will probably try a modern control-esque things more often. More games will probably try resources that give you movement or advantage, or you start the game with a resource and you can just fucking send it at someone with it. Ideas that are not even new necessarily. Ideas that are popular of games that are designed around the same time. My big takeaway from all modern fighting games is that I think fighting games do not need to be easy. There was an era, I think especially, where people were like, let's make the games as like simple as possible, because that's the problem with people getting into fighting games. And I never think that is the case. There's so many genres of games that are more popular than fighting games that are very complicated, really difficult diving in points. Like, if you're going to make a shooting game and you want to attract lots of people and a wide audience, I don't think you're supposed to make a tactical shooter. Correct? You die instantly. Time to kill is really low. You got to wait the whole time to respawn. Movement is slow. The shooting is like more deliberate and precise. What you're supposed to make is like an arena, like arcadey fun shooter that anybody can jump. Like you're supposed to make Fortnite. Valorant built a tactical shooter, is very popular and people like it a lot. Valve built Deadlock, which is a MOBA third-person shooting game with a really complicated shop system and like last hitting system and deny system and movement, and it's 6v6 instead of 5v5, and it's really popular. Like a lot of people are playing it. And I think fighting games are the same way. Building a good, complicated, interesting fighting game that gives people something to aspire to long-term and is a good, complete product and video game is way more important than like, this game is really easy. Because like if the good players and loud voices in the community are like, this is a baby game for babies, then the new players are going to be like, oh, this game is for babies. I don't want to play that. I'm not a baby. Like it actually scares them away, I think. Especially if you make games that are supposed to be easy baby mode games and they try them and they're not winning right away. How do you think people feel if they're like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the baby mode game and I play it and it's still hard? Whereas if you go in with the expectation that the game is difficult and complex but rewards you for investing your life in it, then I think a lot of people feel different. There was a lot of hard things about Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V was a very difficult game in lots of ways, especially at the end game. I actually think they made a more complicated system to engage with in this game than they had in the last game, right? And I don't think that scared people away because they just built a fun, good game to engage with in every other part of the game. Modern control helps. I think that's like a useful thing because mashing does something. Useful thing to have in fighting games like Tekken. Having that is a huge benefit to them. Having a real game to play, like Street Fighter 6 is a real game with features and things to do, and it matches you quickly, and the net play is good, and like lots of good qualities about the game exist. Adding on with like actually having a deeper system to explore, complicated long term but still fun in the beginning, is way more important than like, why don't we just shallow out the end game and then hope that that helps like the new players get in, because then people will reach the ceiling quicker and feel like they're engaging with the game earlier. You give them less room to like flex on people and do cool stuff, and more room to feel like, well, I hit this point. Optimizations after this are like pretty small, and like I don't really have a long path to improvement, and I don't see myself playing this game for thousands of hours and like finding new stuff and enjoying it. Ready for this? You ready to see the basket count?